because we are so focused understanding how to win the system and win the game and know the numbers, but people are just committing all these nasty mistakes.
Oh man, that was powerful.
Welcome back to another episode of Unleash Mindset, where every episode we're bringing professionals, entrepreneurs, that are movers and shakers, influencers, and they're going to share with you their story of success so that you can take your future to the next level. So today I'm honored, it's a privilege to invite my good friend, Tony Hoong, also known as the CPA Dude. So Tony has been a friend of ours for quite some time. He's an incredible professional, tax expert, but more importantly, a friend. So Tony, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today, sharing with all our fans and viewers just tax secrets and how to build wealth and practical information to take them to the next level. So Tony, thanks, brother.
Oh,
Good
thanks
to
for
see
having
you.
me. Yeah,
Yes.
this is gonna be super fun here, man.
Absolutely. So Tony, want to just kind of get right into it. Tell us about your childhood, your upbringing, taxes. I know it's an industry that may or may not be popular as you and I were growing up, but tell me about your past, your childhood, your upbringing. How did you start and how did you become also known as the CPA Dude?
Oh yeah, so the upbringing was I gotta think everything. I actually had a Father's Day post on this yesterday about how my dad taught me how to fish, but it all started at young age of 11. So my dad had a Chinese restaurant. And what do all immigrant kids do? They work for the restaurant.
That's right.
So 11 years old, just came in, packed to-go orders, didn't know much, and also got to count the till. So like every day after the restaurant's done, back in the day, there's a lot more cash.
Yes.
That was just all credit card.
Yeah.
So, but my mom would be like, hey, go count the cash and register. And then eventually she like taught me how to add up tickets. And it was like, all right, how much do we make in sales today? So a lot of it was like the money portion was actually at a super young age. And I think that's where like the love of money came from. And that's like one thing that I've been trying to be like more vocal and more like proud about. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about money. There was a report I saw that said that people are more comfortable talking about sex than they are talking about money. Like it's that taboo and it's that awkward. I'm like, wait, what? So yeah, I just got really comfortable with money in my skin at that time. And then, as I progressed in the restaurant, got to like, learn how to cook, serve tables. That was really good. And then overall it was I'd say 14. I was like 14 years old. Then I got to do payroll. So payroll back in the day, there wasn't like ADP, Gusto, QuickBooks Online. We did this by hand. So we pulled up the tables from the book.
Yep.
Saw how many withholdings you had, and saying, hey, how much do you need withhold from taxes, Social Security, Medicare. So I learned how to do payroll by hand. So that was just like a taste of tax. I didn't know. My mom was like, hey, just do this. I'm like, okay, cool. She didn't want to write the checks anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then it was like, all right, payroll. And then eventually learn how to do sales tax too, because we had to like add up all the numbers, see how much sales tax, give it to the accountant at that time. And then that's like the first like glimpse of like, hey, this is where the money portion of my like life and career started, was just from my parents. And then just being raised in the restaurant, that actually gave me a lot of business experience that I'm like so grateful for now. Like, I didn't think I'd be this far if it wasn't for them, because this has been time under tension this whole time. Like started 11, got super lucky, just like understand how to talk to customers, how to be nice, how to bite your tongue when you want to, clap back, but it is what it is. And then learning how to work with people, right? So it's like, hey, you gotta work with your parents, which are the hardest, your sisters, which are more tough, but then also like their coworkers too, the staff. So I think I just learned a lot of lessons of like becoming like an entrepreneur at that young age. And then those lessons flourished. So then, during this whole time though, what do Asian parents want them to be? Doctors. So it was crazy. So my mom brainstormed me since I think it was like first grade. In first grade, you had to write a letter to your senior self. Because the school, Fairmont, Minnesota, town of 10,000 people, like we were the only Asian family besides the nail family. Like it was so bad.
It was the
Yeah.
Asian restaurant and
Yeah.
the nail salon.
Exactly. It was just like there's no Asians, but at that time it was like, all right, you'll write that to your senior self, and then you'd read it back. Senior year came, like just did the classic. My mom didn't have any standards below A's, right? It was only A's or bust.
No.
So I was like, all right, cool. You do biology, go pre-med. Read that letter, and it said I was going to become a doctor. And I was like, wow, my mom had the plan like curated so young already. So then I went to college, go pre-med. I went to University of Minnesota, was it the School of Biological Sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like, all right, I'm just do biology. Then this is what happens when I think parents restrict their kids for so long is that, so we grew up in a household of, no alcohol, no smoking, no girlfriends, like super nothing. Like all you got was school, work, and that was it. And then some tennis along the way, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was it. So then that first year, I was just, I'm not saying idiot, but I was kind of like, oh my gosh, freedom, right? All right, got other friends, like, oh, there's these parties, there's these girls, there's these drinks, alcohol. And I mean, just trying to live that life while trying to like become pre-med, got straight B's. So went from an Asian to a Bijan, right?
Yeah.
And it was
Asian
just,
Asian.
yeah, I was just like, oh man. Then my dad saw my grades and he's just like, dude, you're not going to get in med school with these grades. Let's be honest.
Yep.
And he's just looking out for the best, right? Like he also wanted me to go to University of Minnesota versus I want to go to a private small school.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was like, well, there's no like Chinese people there. Like you won't be able to, find a wife. And I thought it was awkward. It's dropping me off. We never talked about girls for 18 years of my life. Now this dude's talking about finding a wife at university. I'm like, what? Is this really awkward?
Yeah.
And then I went to the University of Minnesota and was like, oh, dude, he's like, you're not going to make it. So then he just kind of convinced me to quit. And then I quit. And then he bought a restaurant in Cedar Falls, Iowa, back to just rural Caucasian America. And we just ran that restaurant. It's called the Hong Kong Chinese restaurant.
Nice.
And it was chill. I didn't know better. That's all I knew how to do at that time was just like, all right, you're in front, run the whole thing. Ops, cooks, he's got that covered. So I just had to run the front side of the business. And I did that for a year and a half. That was actually kind of a fun, chill time of my life where I was 19 years old. And I was like, okay, like, I was kind of smart. I had a good path. And I was like, guess I'm running a restaurant. And it was like unforeseen cash when I was like 19. We were like doing like 20K a month. And then this was back in 2010. So I was like 20K MRR was pretty cool back then. Like now it's like everyone, their mom makes that now. Like I got 18-year-old clients that make that now.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is really cool.
Uh-huh.
But the crazy thing was like online shopping wasn't that big yet. So we work 14 hours a day. And then you couldn't even spend a single dime just because every store was closed. So it's actually one of the best ways to save money is like you work so much, you don't even have time to spend your own money. So we did that for about a year and a half. And then ultimately, like my mom's was like education. So she didn't have the chance to like go to college. So she finished high school. My dad was a third grade dropout. So like they came to America, wanting to like give up the best life they can for like me and my three sisters. And she was just like, yeah, go back to school. And I was like, all right. Like, I don't know, anything my dad and mom say, I'm just like, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Like, I don't ever challenge them. I'm just like, I don't know, sure. It's not, I'm not going to give them the heat. I don't know, just been brainwashed by them a lot. But I mean, they're always looking out for my best interest is all. Like now that I'm older, I'm like, man, I'm glad I listened to them so much instead of trying to like go against the grain because my sisters did that. But yeah, so we essentially sold that restaurant. I was like, okay, great. Now we go back to school. And I was like, what should I do for school? And I was like, well, accounting was pretty practical when I was running my own business, right? Because I was doing all the cost accounting for like all our cost of goods sold, understand like how much is a beer, how much is soda, how much is like, rice, how much is chicken. So I knew like every number. So I was like, it came natural. So I was like, all right, let me just do accounting. And then once you do accounting, you need 150 credits, not 120 credits. So you actually have to find another 30 credits, which is almost another year. So, was like, what should I double major in? So I did information systems, which I'm so glad I did because accountants don't touch tech. Like you're like, oh my goodness, tech, I'm allergic to this stuff. And I'm luckily got at that double major. And then during that whole time, once again, man, I feel like there's a lot of good Kool-Aid or like cultures that are just like that feed you information to do, right? Like Chinese parents become a doctor. Then in the accounting industry, They say, you got to work for Big Four. So
Yep.
I was like, all right, Big Four, this is what everyone does. And I was like, all right, guess I'm going to go work at Big Four. And then I was like, all right, so I went to, back in the day, you stood in line to hand in your resume. So I had my resume in that like fancy resume paper back in the day,
Yep.
handed it in. The guy looks at it, 3.7, puts it to the maybe pile. Like 3.7 wasn't good enough back then. And I was like, damn, I'm like, hey, like, what do I need to get, man? Like, why did I go to that pile? I was just genuinely curious. I was, well, I'll work hard. Like, I'm never scared of the work. Like, my dad trained me, like, 12 hours a day is easy, right? That's the baseline standard. So 8 is like, oh, I love 8 hours a day. So then I was just like, he's like, oh, we're looking for 3 8s and above. And I was like, oh, okay, 3 8s. But then I was like, damn, I'm like kind of like forecasting, like, even if I do straight A's for the rest of my career, I couldn't get up that high. So then I was like, damn, how else do you get into these companies? And then I just started going to more networking events. And then there was like a KPMG, like kind of like a mixer event. And I just started talking to a couple like associates and seniors that just graduated from my college. And then we just kind of shot the shit and they were like, oh, wait, this kid's pretty cool. Like, let's give this guy a chance. So then they linked me up and they kind of just got me in indirectly. Like, it wasn't the formal process. They're like, hey, let's just give this kid a shot. So I got lucky just because of like, just, I don't know, I was just determined. I was like, everyone says you got to work at Big Four. So I'm like, I'm going to get in. So they gave me a chance, and that's when I did a winter internship with them. And yeah, it was kind of easy actually. Like my internship, like I had great mentors, great seniors that taught me a ton. But like I was like, oh, you only have to work 8 hours, they said. I was like, oh, 12. They paid you overtime. It was like $17 an hour. I was like, I'm pay off all my student debt with this internship. Like, give me all the hours. I'll work as much as I want. So that's where I started at KPMG. And then, eventually I did a summer internship at PwC. That was more in the like assurance space. And I was like, all right, tax was one. So I like the tax a little bit more. And then eventually I went back and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, let me try out this whole part. I was like, I'm gonna do Big Four, and like did that for a couple of years. And then eventually I was like, amazing people. One thing I wish I always did was actually like copy their processes and systems. So like I was just in there doing the work, learning the technical, but how do you actually run a business? Like in hindsight, I'm like, this is world-class organization. How do they bill? How do they hire? Like how the actual operations of the business? I wish I paid more attention, but at least we knew that, hey, you bill 3x, like your salary at least, or else you're getting fired. Like,
Yeah.
that was the thing. So I did that for a couple of years and then, later moved to California. And that was in 2017. Now that, I did that and then like, the whole lure of like the Bay Area is you gotta work in tech.
Yep.
Right? Everyone wants to work in tech. So what's the cool thing about tech? I just guess like following the herd. At that time, I was like, all right, let me work in tech. So I worked at Uber and DoorDash. I didn't drive. Some people always ask me like, you drove Uber and DoorDash, dude? I'm like, no, dude, I like worked as a tax manager there.
Yeah.
So, I finished out my career there. And then I was just like, it didn't make sense. Like it was okay money. I think my base salary was like 165 grand at DoorDash at that time. And I think I had like 150 grand in like RSUs a year.
Yep.
So it was a pretty nice package. I'm like, this is the most money I've ever seen as a 28-year-old kid. And I was like, oh, it's not bad. It's pretty good. It's pretty cush. But then the grass is not greener on the other side. Like you want more money, you're going to work for it and expect to work for it. And I was like, can't be that much worse than Uber, right? So I was like, fine, I'll take the job. And then they worked you like a dog. Like I was like, this is terrible. It was 12 hours a day, at least 6, if not 7 days a week. DoorDash.
Wow.
I was like, dang. I was like, this is like a restaurant again.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, but there's no chill downtime. Restaurant from 2 to 4, there's not a single customer. You can breathe.
Yeah.
Just fuck off on your phone. But this one, I was like, you had to work the whole thing. I was like, wait. And then I was brewing up the CPA Dude at this time. So the CPA Dude was brewing up in 2019. And originally it came from like my wife. She actually came up with the whole name. And that was actually just like me, my personality, like just keeping things simple. Like I'm very big into like the KISS method, just keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yep.
That's like my whole philosophy in life is like, keep it simple. And then she was like, oh, the CPA Dude. It was just like very reflective of my personality. Like how can you take something really complex, boil it down into like layman's terms? That's where the company name started up. Also, we just didn't want to be like, Hoong and Anderson Associates LLP, right? Like, oh my God, you've seen that so many times where it's like, okay, like how can we be a little bit different? So that's where the CPA Dude brewed up from. And I just started as a side hustle in December 19. And then it was like wait, this thing actually has some, it was going actually. I didn't think I was gonna get a single customer, dude. Like I opened up shop and I was like, cool, we launched it. Fun story was we actually, Uber gave you about $1,200 a year for learning and development, L&D.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're supposed to uplift your career, whatnot. And I was just like, took that 1,200, called him up, my best friend. I was like, yo, dude, can I get a website for $1,200? And then he's like, sure, sounds good. So I flew back to Minnesota for Christmas break. And then we went to Panera Bread, and then we just slapped together a website, offered everything under the sun. We didn't know better, like payroll, bookkeeping, sales tax, income tax, like didn't know what we're doing. We're just like standing up a business and like, let's see if this thing even works. And then he fed me some clients. I got on Yelp, found some clients, got on Facebook groups, found some clients. So it was just becoming a side hustle until April 21. That's that DoorDash time.
Yep.
Fast forward then, and I was like, dude, I was doing 12 hours a day. I was like, I think I calculated my rate. I was like $400 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, not bad. I mean, I used to bust tables and make like, it was, if it was $100 in tips that day,
Mm-hmm.
working 12 hours, I was like super excited as like 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
So like my baseline, I was be like, dude, $100 is an amazing day. And then I was making 400. I was like, this is a lot of good money. And my mom was like, oh, it's very cush cash. You know, you sure you want to leave? And then and during that moment though, I had this 2 week span. I was charging $300 an hour back then. And then I just kept on getting a consultation like every day for like 2 weeks. And I was like, and that was like that click of confidence where it's like, wait, I can work 1 hour for $300. All I do is just advise someone. I'm like,
Yep.
this is amazing. Versus 12 hours for $400 and be like, yo, you gotta do the technical work. You gotta go like have a boss. You got like, it just didn't make sense. That's when I was just like, oh, I gotta quit. Like that was April 21. And the big thing was my buddy told me is like, this is stagnant money. And that word stagnant just, it just like grinded my gears so much. I was like, that's a terrible word. I was like, good, consistent, stagnant money. But I'm like, let me just bet on myself. But I also asked him like, yo, dude, if this fails, can I buy McDonald's every day from you? Like, he's like, I got you. So it really gave me that leap of faith because my book was kind of built up and I had that assurance that like, hey, at least we got food on the table. So that was like how the CPA dude kind of like was born overall.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
Hearing your childhood, hearing you going to corporate world, and then realizing your hourly rate is way higher than what corporations were paying you, and wanted to take control of your career and future. Then creating, I would say, you're not only a tax expert, but you and your significant other, you guys are a marketing expert, a branding expert. Because you're right, Hoong and Anderson and Associates. I don't think that would have nearly the type of success that you're currently having, which is truly amazing. So I want to go back into your childhood. So when you told your parents that you were going to leave medicine to go into accounting, you said something that I don't know how many Asian parents would be like your father. He was extremely supportive. He was telling you like, hey, this is probably not right for you to go into accounting instead. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, the medical school, he said that wasn't good.
Yep.
Like, I'm not going to get in. Like,
Yep.
let's just like rip the Band-Aid off and let's say, hey, you're not going to make it a straight B's.
Yep.
And he's right? Like
Yeah.
everyone there's A. Those are extremely smart people, which is, we're so fortunate to have them. And then the accounting was really funny. He thought accounting, like the whole Big Four thing, he didn't think I was going to get in.
He didn't think
Because I had 3.7. Like,
yeah.
he's like, well, these accountants are just as smart as doctors. Like, what's going to be the difference? So like he's always supported me, but it's always tough love. Like to this day, this dude has never told me he loves me.
Wow.
Which is fine. I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
But like he's a chef, so he like cooks. That's his love language. Like he cooks for you, and that's like how he shows his love. So I was like always making an effort to eat, even though it's not the healthiest thing. But I'm like, all right, I'm gonna just eat the food.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's always just cut it to me straight. But he also said like the big thing ever since I was a kid. I remember this phrase. He was just like, you working for someone else, it's good, but it's not gonna be great.
Wow.
Like you have to be your own boss. So he's always just like, he is just always just hated working W-2. Like it just wasn't his thing. He's just always ingrained that in my mind. And then finally had that avenue, to be like, oh, I can actually be my own boss. So it's good. He's always like egged me on like that, just to be like, yeah, have your own business, have your own business, have your own business. But it took a while to actually figure out what was that business going to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to go become your own boss, did you building your clientele, because just being your own boss, being an accountant and filing taxes in 19 to 21, taking that leap of faith, at what moment? I know you said you're charging $300 an hour versus 12 hours, $400. What moment drove you to say, hey, I'm stopping this DoorDash business and going straight investing in you?
Yeah, it was Christmas vacation of 2020.
Yep.
Rare super vividly. So it was, I had, it was, you had your Christmas off, you had your New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve off. In between those days, you still had to work though,
Yep.
right? But they gave you those days off, supposed to. So I had like all my client calls scheduled. I didn't even spend time with my family. I had all my client calls scheduled, all my like everything just lined up. And then this was on New Year's Eve. And my whole schedule was packed because like there's only time I could talk to these guys during the time. And then DoorDash called me in on a company holiday.
Wow.
Like I wonder how legal it was in hindsight, but I'm a team player, so I'm like, whatever. Like ironically, I was the only person who knew how to run this program. So it was like an information program that just manipulates a whole bunch of data and like spits it out into like a digestible form. I was the only person who knew how to run it. So they called me in that day and it ruined that whole day. And I had to call or text every client like, hey, sorry, I had to make something up. I feel
Yeah.
terrible.
Yep.
Because these people take time out of their day and block it out to see you. Like, it's not like they're always constantly free. These are very busy people. So I felt horrendous.
Hmm.
I was like, sorry, I got to reschedule. And I hate rescheduling. And then that was it's done. Like, this is just, that is a company holiday.
Yeah.
Like, how can you call me in? And like, I'm not going to just let them die and dry because it was like year end. Like,
Yep.
they really needed this adjustment for sales taxes. So I like came in and ran it, but it just ruined my day. I was like, nah, I'm good. And that started the back and forth with my boss. And I was like, he's like, yo, no, just stay, just work 40 hours a week.
Mm.
And then I was like, oh, wow, I can work 40 hours a week and get paid this. I'm like, that sounds pretty good. But then it was kind of, I wouldn't say it was a lie, but the indirect pressures that the team put on you to produce the amount of deliverable, it was not going to get done in 8 hours a day. So I still ended up working 10, 12 hours a day. And I was just like, it's really not for me. And, we dragged that out for about 4 months. That's when I finally quit in April.
You quit in April and then
Yeah.
you built your business.
Yeah, that's when I can go all in on the business. So it was like a side hustle up until, so it was December 19 to April 21. It was a side hustle. Had no life, gave up everything. Like evenings, had nothing, Saturday, Sunday. I didn't even hang out with my wife back then. Like she's been fighting for the one Saturday, like one day of the week for, I think it was like 10 years in. Yeah, it's 10 years into our relationship. She finally got one day. So she's been a trooper since like day one.
Yep.
But I had no life, which was fine. I actually like love the work. And like I was actually talking to my associate last night. I was like, it's not really work. I'm just kind of just like here shooting the shit with you. We're talking about the food we ate and then the sales like training that we're gonna do this week. So it's always been not a lot of work because it's just like, you're just helping people out. It's really easy when you're just helping people out. But it was just trooping to get to that point. And then April 21, I could just double down. And wow, the synergy when you can actually have 8 hours, 10, 12 hours, 14 hours focused on just yourself versus, you do your 9 to 5, your 5 to 9, it's a world of difference actually. Like everything just compounded so well. I'm like, oh wow, I can actually like work on the business and work in the business because I didn't have employees at that time. So it was just a nice change of like, oh, I can be me and do me.
Mm. For all the people that are watching, thinking about, you shared with me you being in a stable W-2 corporate role that want to transition, building their own business, taking that leap of faith, investing in themselves. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, the first advice I would probably just give them is like, hey, are you happy are you happy in your current state? Are you fulfilled? Like it's a big mix between those. I feel like happy is a moment of state. Fulfillment is like a constant, like it's always constant. So it's like if you're happy and you're fulfilled, you can stay. But if you're not, and I honestly have this conversation a ton with our clients, I'm like, yeah, ask yourself this. Go on Saturday morning, like no one, no friends, no significant others, no kids, and go ask yourself, are you happy or not? And then if you're not happy, not fulfilled, then let's quit. But until you quit, it's like, okay, let's not bet the whole farm. So like I live near San Francisco.
Yeah.
God awful expensive. Not as bad in New York City, I bet, but
Close enough.
yeah. Just as horrendously bad. And you just can't just like, all right, peace, I'm out. Like
Mhm.
it's, you still have your mortgage to pay, you got your rent to pay, you got your food, your car, just the basic necessities, but also living within your means is super important. So like, if you have enough of like a nest to build up and you're like really going to be into doing whatever you want, go for it. But like I would say being more conservative is like brew up the side hustle to cover the basics, right? Just your food, your house, your car, then quit your job. That's like my biggest thing. Like also it's just also proof of concept is you may have this wonderful, great idea, this service, but no one may even buy. And
Yeah.
then before you quit and ruin your potential career at that point, you could be in a bad spot. So I say brew up the side hustle up until that point. Also, brewing up a side hustle shows you that you can work more. Also, like if people are actually going to pay you, but the next part is just like, how do you actually do lead gen and sales and marketing? Like people asking for the sale is actually really hard. I think most people think, oh, you're an amazing baker. I think that stories always say, hey, you're a great baker, you should go and open up a bakery. And the person opens up a bakery, right? And they're like, oh, this is great. But then they didn't like, I love baking. I can sell my stuff. People can taste my food. But they don't realize there's everything else running a business, right? There's from your sales to your marketing to your HR to your operations, customer complaints, whatever you name it. It's like all this other stuff you never imagined. So that's why like I never really encourage people to go all in unless like, I think the joke on social media these days is like, you have, your upper middle class housewife if you have a business that loses $10,000 a month because your husband's supporting it.
Yeah.
That's like the joke on social media, which is like, unless you have that, which is still very rare, is just brew it up very slowly. I like to do things that are very conservative that actually work before you hop all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I started building my business, very similar to what you just mentioned. I looked at my expenses, and you'll love this because of your accounting background. I looked at what are my fixed expenses, my variable expenses, and what were luxury. At that point, as we're building our business, there's no such thing as luxury. Those are sacrificed and forfeited. So it's really like the fixed and the variable. And how can we reduce our variable as much as possible? Dining out less, just maybe cooking more, meal prepping. But I remembered I was probably on a monthly basis, including paying rent, $3,000 a month.
Oh,
And
it's amazing.
that was amazing in New York City,
Yeah.
right? So $3,000 a month. Now I realized early on, especially today when I work with entrepreneurs, is you want them to find happiness and fulfillment. But many of them, when they take that leap of faith to become an entrepreneur, they start out as self-employed, then become an entrepreneur.
That's
Yep.
like that's a key step. Like, oh my gosh, I'm glad you called that out because that's a policy, I feel like.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So therefore, they have to take some certain level of sacrifice. But the hardest part, at least from my experience working with a lot of entrepreneurs, is the mental mindset and the shift of something stable and consistent to being, variable.
Mm.
So knowing that it's 3,000 a month of expenses, I said to myself, well, if this month I make 5,000, as an example, I will just pay myself a salary. I would say I'll pay myself a salary, and at that time I said, just like a W-2 job pays you every bi-monthly, every 2 weeks, I will pay myself 2,000, and then the next paycheck will be 2,000. So therefore, in that month, although we make 5,000, I'm only going to pay myself 4,000, so 1,000 stays in the business.
Oh yeah.
Stays in business. Yep. And then the second month, I make 10,000 in my business, but guess what? I still pay myself 4,000. But the first month, 4,000. Second month, 4,000. First month's delta would have been 1,000 surplus. Second month's delta, now 6,000 surplus. Let's say the third month, like the instability of a business owner. Let's say now the reserve have about 7 grand. Third month, you and I, maybe it's the summers or the end of the year holidays, there is no business. But because there's 7,000 in the surplus account, you still get paid the 4,000. By doing so, we eliminate that type of mental instability and risk of uncertain income.
Mm.
Did you do something similar in your stage? Because you mentioned that, hey, I had to calculate a certain amount of emergency fund, build a reserve, then take that leap of faith. For me, I did not have that in the beginning.
Yeah.
I just had to say, hey, let's not think like a business owner because I want to have the upside of a business owner, but I had to create an income stream that was like a corporate employee. Who was my boss? It was me. Who was the employee? It was me. Who was everything? It was us. So how did you in the beginning try to shift your mental mindset to eliminate the risk that was apparently right there?
Yeah, I really like your style there. It's just like, hey, you have enough and then it stays and it just keeps on going. Like that's a really good way to do it because some people just hop in. They don't. I ask for like, hey, what's the forecast? They're like, what's the forecast? You got a business plan? No business plan. I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna be a rocky road. But ours, I was just very conservative. So like my father told me, like, never buy anything if you don't have cash.
Yep.
And like no leverage, no credit cards, which like I don't quite agree. If you're smart, leverage is the best tool ever. But most people don't know how to use leverage. So for me, I have a very conservative background and it was like, all right, cool. Our house was like 5 grand. It was like silly between like PITI.
Hmm.
And then the car got a Prius, so $600, 5,600. And then food between like me and my wife were like about $400. So it was around like 6K a month was our burn rate.
Yep.
And then it was just at that time I just had enough retainers. So I did it from a like bookkeeping, tax work. So most of the retainer work was like more advisory slash like bookkeeping, a lot more on the bookkeeping side.
Hmm.
So I just built up enough clients to have that 6K.
Yep.
And then that's when I was like, oh, okay, I got enough now. And then I left. That's like, all right, that's my baseline. So knowing like the model, like having like it was an okay model at that point. We refined it a ton since then, just of like the more luxuries of life of like learning from like elite entrepreneurs like yourself was like, hey, there's different coaching models, like all service offers. Like, so we're able to change that up. But yeah, it was just 6K and I just built up enough retainer. I was like, okay, I'm good now. And then, so that was just enough to like survive. And then once the tax season hits, that's when you like, it's almost like reminds me of a harvest, right?
Yeah.
During the summer, you don't eat anything. Then in the fall, you get your harvest. Like, oh, sweet. It's kind of like tax season. Like, cool. Your big, rushes were like September, October. And then you also have your March and Aprils. And that's when the business like boosted. And you're like, okay, this is like the actual profit. But just to live each month was just like basic retainers.
Mm.
Hmm.
And then at what point, because when you started, you mentioned it was just more you.
Yeah.
So what gave you the confidence? Because us knowing you for these years, you now have a team of 26.
Yeah.
So what made you go from being by yourself as you were building the CPA Dude to now having a team of 26 and building truly like an enterprise?
Yeah, it's crazy to think to this day that we have that big of an organization. Like we're super blessed, super thankful. I'm like, it's kind of like unreal some days. I still think about like, wow. And then we want to go more, but really it just came down to I could only do so much. Where it was just like, dang, I'm like, I just need some like basic help of like data entry, right? So, and then I could just do the high level review and like talk to clients. And it was just not enough time at the end of the day. I was like, okay, how can we help out? And then ironically, this was crazy. So my dad told me, he's like, you have a cousin that studied accounting? I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, one, I had a cousin. Like, two, he studied accounting. I'm like, how come I've never heard of this guy before? And then, yeah, he's just like, yo, you guys should connect. So then I was just like, okay, let's connect. Cause I was like, all right, I was like on that point where like kind of getting stretched thin. And then I connected with the kid and it was crazy. He was maybe 20, goodness, I think he was maybe 22 at this time. And I was like, wow, he really knows his stuff. I'm like, how do you know so much, dude? And he's been working for like small tax shops since he was 18,
Mm.
just getting real life experience. So, he was like my cousin. I was like, hey man, you just want to come out and help out. And then he decided just to help out. So that started the cycle. And then he's just like, man, we need more help. I'm like, sounds good. Like, whatever you tell me. Like most of my employees, I just asked them, what do you need help with? How can I support you? Like, all right, we need to hire more. All right, cool. We need to spend money here. All right, cool. So then he brought on another person and then that kind of started the snowball. And then it was like, she brought on her friends.
Wow.
So we've always tried to hire like internally or first connection first. We're starting to at this point run out of like first connections.
Mm.
But then the big game changer was when I hired my COO Eldar. And now he kind of brought to the table everything I didn't have. So a lot on the process, the hiring, like the very long-term vision. Like I'm always like sprint, 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 go really fast. And he's like, all right, it's a marathon, dude. Like calm down.
Mm.
We'll get there. I'm like, all right, cool. So I brought him on and then he stood up a ton of the hiring portion. So we were able to find offshore labor with his like system procedure, interview skills, and he understands culture really well. So that's when we really exploded. Before, like, it was me and more administrative help, data entry preparer, senior level. Like, I had one tax manager and she was okay, but I didn't really know how to hire back then. So then Eldar came in and then it's just exploded our offshore functions. And it's been great. I mean, he even went to India last year.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was just like cool. And then they said that organization, we use a third party firm just because all the security and everything, which
Yep.
is almost sounds like a prison. Like, I asked him, like, how's it look in there? Really nice office, but like cell phones get dropped off before you go in. No pen, no paper. You just go to your workstation. Cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, all the USB drives don't work.
Wow.
So like it's like super secure, which like gives me a ton of peace of mind, because that's like the thing why I never offshore. Because like, we're talking about social security numbers, date of births, addresses. Like, you don't lose this information. Like,
Yeah.
you will probably die. Like, I don't know, I
Yeah.
treat it as like I'm gonna die if I lose this for one of my clients. So it was like,
Just stroke. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So much private information.
Yeah, it's just
All
like,
leaning on you. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, this is the most sensitive stuff ever. And they trust you with this information. They trust you with your money. You can't ever let them down. So we were able to get a ton of comfort that way. And also my mentor, he uses the same company too. So really great firm, which was like, so, I don't know, everything just aligns so well. I say sometimes I call it luck. Some people remind me, hey, it's not luck. It's just like you worked for it. You just discovered it yourself. So that's how we really exploded. And now we've got that function, like, stood up. We can hire a lot of good resources there. But then we're always looking out for like great tax managers. So people ask me, oh, are you hiring? Well, I'm always hiring, really. So like, why wouldn't I always hire? Just because like we're never gonna stop. So I'm like, hey, let me just keep on going and we'll see where this firm parks. Some people want to like chill. I'm like, hey, it's not a chill firm. Like, we're out here to become like the Nike of tax firms. I always tell my team this, like, we're gonna become the Nike of tax firms. You can ride this vision with us. If not, totally understand. Like, this is probably not the company for you right now, which is totally fine. There's different companies that are more, they're just riding on the sidelines. Each tax season comes, finish, have a cool summer, die again October, September. But I'm like, no, it's a consistent workflow all the time. So yeah, the hiring has been really fun, really challenging. It's kind of like actually where my job has changed a ton.
Hmm.
So I went from being like a practical person who filed taxes to being like a tax strategist to marketing. I just still do marketing now. And now it's like actually pouring back to our people even more. So even like weekly one-on-ones, I think I'm like 12 hours a week just on weekly one-on-ones just to support everyone. So the roles changed a ton, but the people have made a world of difference. Like, I couldn't leave the firm before. It was
Yeah.
like, you brought the whole work with you. There's no such thing as chill. There's no vacation. Now it's like the thing's gonna run if I'm not there. Yeah, maybe have some like bumps in the road. Yeah, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if I die tomorrow, everyone's still getting paid. There's enough marketing, like revenue coming in. Like, the firm's gonna live now, which is kind of cool to see.
That's great.
Hmm.
And just hearing how you've automated, went from in the business to focusing on the business. Now you have the luxury and the freedom to like focus out of the business, but the firm itself still has that uh, systems, operation, brand loyalty, and execution is truly where most business owners lack and aspire to be.
Yeah.
Now, I want to kind of go back into like your family background. So, does your father still own the restaurant?
Oh, so he just sold
Okay.
2 years ago. So he had his restaurant for 34 years.
Yes.
And then, yeah, he was Fairmont, Minnesota. We had that location for, gosh, I want to say like 18, 19 years. Then we went to Austin, Minnesota for like a year. Then we went back to Blue Earth, Minnesota, small
Okay.
town. It's like the Jolly Green Giant, the vegetable person,
Yes.
those
Yes.
vegetables. So
Yep.
that's where that town packs a lot of it.
Okay.
So then we had that one. Actually, ironically, found his building for him. I used to just drive around and, he got me interested in real estate.
Okay.
So he got a ton of real estate during the crash.
Hmm.
So then,
Which crash?
uh,
08 crash?
'08 crash.
Okay.
Yeah, '08 crash. All the houses, they were on fire sale. Like,
Yeah.
we're picking up homes for like 50 grand in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Wow.
Yeah, so then I was just like, he kind of like taught me that or looped me in. I did all his dirty work for that.
Uh-huh.
And then I helped them find like that new location. And then there was a Dollar General store.
Yep.
And they wanted like 400. And my dad was just like, hey, man, I'll give you 150.
Yeah.
And then they ended up taking the offer like 180, which
Uh-huh.
is hilarious. I've like learned bargaining from him kind of.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he stood up that location for about 15 years. So it's just retired in the last 2 years. And then thankfully, we're kind of concerned because 5,000 people town, no one wants to go there. No one wants to do a Chinese restaurant anymore. And O'Reilly, threw out a Hail Mary actually and contacted us to buy the building. And the only reason why is because I put up a really bad LoopNet listing years ago. And then that guy found me from that listing. So just having an online presence is just needed today. You never know who's going to bark. And this guy was like a representative from O'Reilly Auto Parts out our building.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your father learned very early on it's not about active income,
Yeah.
but passive income,
Yeah.
being an investor, and today real estate, retiring. Question for you, because my father was also at one point a restaurant owner.
Yeah.
He started out early on as a chef, then became owning his own restaurant. And I worked at his restaurant, but the difference is you were doing the more high level trust work. I was just picking up phone calls and taking orders for like chicken and broccoli, General Tso chicken, and like fried rice. But did your father ever add you to payroll? That's a question.
So he added me to payroll for income tax planning.
Sure.
So
That's
there's a $600 check that was in my name every month, but I never got the $600.
Oh, yeah.
So it was just a write-off deposit in my name,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't get a touch to $600.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like kind of was on payroll, but I didn't see the money. That's why I like love tips, because that money I could actually go spend.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but then that just truly shows how elevated your family was compared to my family. My father, he was paying me like cash. And it's like, hey, son, here's $20 for the week of hard work. And quite frankly, he could have paid me like you and I just spoke about, add me on payroll, up to the standard deduction, deduct on a federal level, help start building my Social Security, right? At a young age, build my credit score. But he didn't do any of that. So your family was more like, although from like Eastern Asia, but more modernized, building it the right way through Western world. That's why for me, it was like, why would I ever want to be in a restaurant business? Which most of us may have our family members help us in our business, but at least your father was effective and smart about it by adding you to the payroll. My father did not, and he could have saved more money on taxes, helped me build build wealth at an earlier age, but none of that was possible.
Oh, yeah. That's just like, I picked up a lot of small tips and tricks from my parents, like as they did. Their taxes weren't perfect, but at least they had something moving on. Yeah.
What is one of the most working with, speaking of like Asians and immigrants, asking you, what is a very common mistake or trap, tax planning trap, that minorities commit that you think they should be wiser and smarter and better at doing?
Oh yeah, this one is it's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's actually investing into their taxes. So like immigrants will not spend a single penny more than they need to.
Yes.
So there's tax filing, which they get done for $300, in Chinatown. Actually, fun fact. Guy hit me up last week. He was like wondering how much my rates were. I'm like, it starts at $1,500. He's like, $1,500? What? I was like, I go to Chinatown for $250. I'm like, sir, he was 80 years old. I was like, Mr. Wu, like, my labor costs more than $250 to do your return. I'm sorry, I literally can't. I'm like, hold on to that CPA. They're so cheap. They're so good. You're never going to find a better rate. But the biggest thing that, minorities make, immigrants make, is they don't invest in their taxes. And the way that you can invest is just like, hey, do a tax plan, know all the rules one time, just take the same playbook and run it. But they think that, and they don't know better. Like my parents, they thought like their taxes were super optimized, but later I learned that they weren't like super optimized, and they're just losing money on the table. Like there was like, even if you can save $10,000 a year, and that's 10,000 added up 30 years, 8%, $1.3 million. Like you're sitting on $1.3 million that you're just giving away to the government each year because you haven't invested into your tax planning. So like tax filing is one thing, tax planning is one thing. Yes, it's very expensive, but it's a one-time investment that's going to pay itself off so fast, either that immediate moment or within like 2-3 years, depending on how fast you act. So just investing into your taxes actually can like make a massive difference for you.
100%. And it's ironic because Asians growing up, we were always taught about like education is key, right? But they're not willing to, and especially with tax planning, it's about investing in a strategist so that you're learning and being educated so that you can then in perpetuity in the future years compound that knowledge and execution to building wealth.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Then
Yep.
I like the word wealth.
Yep.
That's the thing that people are missing. It's just like, hey, the wealth part is so key, but you're not going to build any wealth, and then you're going to have zero generational wealth if you don't start with it. But you literally have money sitting for you. Like your taxes is one part that you can save on, but then there's the investment side. You let your money work for you versus I've seen accounts where I pull up someone's tax return. I'm like, why do we have 5 figures in interest, but you don't have a 7 figure salary? Like you're making a 6 figure salary, but you have this much in interest. I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy's just parked
Part
all.
cash.
Yeah, it just like, oh, it just like grinds my gears a lot. I'm like, oh my goodness, you can make so much more money, but
Yeah,
they're not investing into investments
definitely.
either. It's like, oh, it's a two-way street that they need to do.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure. And speaking of tax filing, and most minorities try to go for the cheaper one.
Mhm.
Here's a funny story that you may um, find amusing. Not going to say the person because this is someone that close to me and dear. I remember when I was early in my career, this person, a good close friend of mine, asked me, he's like, "Hey, do you have a good CPA accountant?" This was before we've known each other. It's like, "Did you recommend?" So I introduced him to someone, and quite frankly, he received a quote for like $800.
Hmm.
Then he said, "Hey man, thank you for the introduction, but I found someone in Chinatown for 150 bucks." And I literally said to him, I said, "Well, price is what you pay, value is what you get." And he was like, "Well, the $800 person, they were going to save me some money. Let's say their income at that time was like 200,000. They said they found me about like $15,000 of refund, but the $150 person, they found me almost like 40,000 of refund." And I said, "Well, there's probably something that you may or may not know of. How are they finding you that $40,000 refund?" They're like, "I don't know. I just wanted to make sure that the person that files for me is cheap and gets me more refund and money." So then later on, like 2 years later, after using that person, probably someone in Chinatown in a dark alley, swinging lights, right, where there's like dripping water, like in the dark, scary movies, and he calls me. He's like, "Hey brother, like I just got audited by the IRS and I owe like almost like $50,000 in back taxes and penalty." And I said, "Well, did you go talk to your accountant?" And then he's like, "The accountant," I said to him, "but they said they don't represent." And what I found and realized was that person was filing for $150, was helping them plug in the numbers into whatever program system, but actually he was signing the paperwork at the end.
Oh,
So it was like almost like they were helping him type it, but he signed it in. So therefore, there was no liability to that other professional. It was all liability to him. And one thing that was realized was they were just overly aggressive, deducting things that were not real and true and accurate, which later on, that was a lesson learned. And now today, he's never thinking about like price. He's thinking about who can really get the job done. And you're 100%, most people are focused on filing, but very few are talking about tax planning. What changed your mind, because your industry is so saturated with filers, but very few, in my opinion, are doing the right planning? When did you decide to change and be so different in an industry that I believe is lack creativity and execution?
yeah, it was a lot of it. Like, I don't even know. I mentioned this probably, beating a dead horse again, but
Yep.
a lot of it's my parents.
Yeah.
So they have a business.
Yep.
And then they got into real estate in '08.
Hmm.
And then like they didn't ask me for like tax tips until like I got a CPA. And they're like, you got a CPA license now. Like this thing's like grand and mighty. And they're like,
Yeah.
not everyone gets a CPA. Like only 50% of people pass the test.
Yep.
And I was like, oh wow. So then they instantly thought, oh, you got a certification, you know everything,
Yeah.
right? Like you know how to save all the money in the world. They just asked me how we save money on taxes. And I was like, I don't know. Like I know how to file taxes really well. That's what I was taught at KPMG. You know, I worked at Novogradac real estate firm. They didn't teach me that much either. And then Uber DoorDash didn't teach you anything. So I actually had to go learn the journey by myself. And it was, so they wanted that. And then those clients I was filing, so I started as a tax preparer filer
Yep.
right when my early career. And it was hilarious. I was like, I tell people to this day, like, dude, I didn't even know if I had a business.
Mm.
First client I had, a teacher, paid me 150 bucks.
Hmm.
And I was like, to this day, like she's actually still with us. We've increased her fees like 1,000 plus now to her, just like the special rate
Yep.
for just being a good supporter. But all the clients at that time, they're like, oh great, you're really fast. Like this is good. I got it done. Like you actually talk to me. My other CPAs don't. How do I save money on taxes? I was like, "Oh, that's a great question." I was like, "I need the basic stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like S corp, kids, 401ks, HSAs, that stuff. That's the easy low hanging fruit."
Yeah.
But then I really wanted to get like into becoming like a master of it. So then I went to everything. So I went to Google, read everything I could, find it there. At Uber, they had like really expensive tax research software. Looked it up there. There's nothing good on those two. Then I went to YouTube University, found this dude named Mark Kohler,
Uh-huh.
and then he is kind of like the OG goat of tax planning, actually.
Mm.
So anyone that is like a prominent tax strategist this day, everyone actually pays tribute to Mark Kohler.
Wow.
So like, but Mark's thing was like he had all these disparate strategies, and same thing on Google. They're like, there's this strategy, that strategy, and then tax research software. I'm like, great, but nothing could put it together. And I was like, dang. I'm like, how can I find like a comprehensive, out of the box go to like how to do tax planning, how to save on taxes? And then I just kept on looking. I read another book, Tom Wheelwright's Tax-Free Wealth.
Hmm.
That's Robert Kiyosaki, CPA.
Yep.
It was actually really funny reading the book. He taught you the high level, but didn't actually teach you the how.
Yes. It's
So
the whys and not the hows.
it was just hilarious. I was like, people pay money for this book? Like, I only know how to do it because I'm a CPA, right?
Yeah.
Like I read it and I was like, oh, that's like good stuff.
Hmm.
But there's no resource that puts it all together. I was just like, I want to pay people. So then I went on Twitter even. I was like, anyone got any like mentorships that teach you tax planning? Happy to pay. I respect people's time.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I was like, this makes no sense. And like to this day, there's still not really a formal tax planning course or anything. Mark Kohler just came out with his 2 years ago.
Okay.
So that was just, before my time when I did all this. So what happened was like going through this whole crazy journey, I accumulated all these tools and then I'm like, oh, wait, you have these tools. You just have to know when to use them.
Yes.
And I was like, I've been sitting on this the whole time. I've learned everything. And I'm just like, oh, dude, you just got to bust out the tool at the right time. So going to learn all those strategies actually like forced me to become a really good tax strategist, because the tax strategist now, it actually comes down to the creativity of that person and how they can actually do taxes. So what's happens is like some people may be not good at tax planning at all, right? There's those people.
Yep.
Then there's some real estate specific people. Then there's some small business folks and high W-2. But like thankfully where the perfect storm brewed up was I live in the Bay Area, everyone and their mom's high W-2.
Yeah.
Like you work in the Bay, you have $400,000 of W-2 plus RSU.
Yeah.
Like it's easy, right?
Yep.
And then my parents had their restaurant and also had their real estate. And I was like perfect guinea pigs. So like I was able to just like formulate strategies for each kind of like archetype. So like,
Yep.
oh, W-2, you pull out these. Oh, real estate, you pull out these. Oh, small business, you pull out these. But then the unlock was like, wait, you can't be a robot. Taxes is different for everyone. So one person may have two properties plus a business, two properties plus a W-2. So we just got really like, I think just the mind of like, hey, have a real conversation with your client. What do they want to do? What's their goals? And now what tools do I know that I can bring out and help them save on taxes? So that's kind of like how the whole crazy journey of actually getting good was. There's no resource.
Hmm.
Just go learn it yourself. But then the click was just like, oh, you're sitting on it, dude. Just got to do it now. But the big thing was just having the conversation with our clients, because a lot of it stuff gets lost in text and emails. Just one simple phone call actually just changes the whole conversation actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were different where you were doing customization
Yeah.
tax planning,
Mm-hmm.
where most firms out there were just doing tax filing, just working with so many business owners. They're like saying, hey, around end of the year or beginning of the following year, I just go see my tax professional, give them a stack of my tax numbers, 1099s, K1s, and they file it for me, and that's it. Now, I believe that is a disservice to the business owner, the client, because they're not really learning, and there's so much planning that should be done the year prior to the deadline, right? Because
yeah.
if there's any opportunity of tax savings, let's say this year, you start seeing your tax professional next year, many of those deadlines have already passed.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Literally today is
Yep.
like a super big deadline for the pass through NA tax.
Yep.
And if you miss the deadline, you're not going to get till next year. So yeah, we're just chasing down or what. Yeah, literally in the year is so important. I always tell folks, hey, it's like once the clock strikes midnight on December 31st, it's like Cinderella, the chariot just turns back into the pumpkin, it's over.
Yep.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a story of Asian business. It was a nail salon owner. We referred to her, and she always wanted to focus on building wealth. But she's been a nail salon owner for over a decade. And when she first met me, she's like, hey, I'm working really hard, 14, 16 hours, maybe a day, 6, 7 days a week. But I realized that I have a lot of just cash sitting in the bank. I want to buy real estate. And then I simply asked her, I said, show me your tax return. And then I noticed her tax return was terrible. And she said, hey, I want to buy the building that I was occupying. And she didn't know some of the more basic rules like SBA loans. You could put 10% down, and through a business, you could borrow it through, a financial institution. But the reason why she wasn't getting those opportunities was because her numbers were so low. Then I said something to her which kind of dawned upon her, which was unique, different, creative, but it was something she never heard of. She said, well, what should I do? What is the next step? I said, let's create a financial plan or like a tax plan where we can borrow money, leverage, especially during that period. Interest rates were like in the 3s to 5s,
Oh, man.
3 to 5. And I remember telling her, I said, hey, on your filing, it looks like you're filing like you're making 50,000. I said, tell me about like the revenue. I realized her revenue's in the 7 figures, but she was just reinvesting so much into the business, whether it's equipment, salary and payroll. I don't know if she's teaching her or her tax professional teaching her. It's just deduct. But what was her goal? To buy the building she was occupying, because she knew the landlord was retiring soon and they would sell it. So we came up with like a 2-year plan by simply saying, hey, the next 2 years, I want you to show more on your returns. And she was like blown away in disgust. She was like, I'm showing 50,000. You're telling me to show 300,000? What's wrong with you? Although clearly she can easily show that, just not reinvesting so much in the business. And I said, let me explain something. At that time, because of the low interest rate, I said, every dollar you show in your return, let's say 50,000, you could borrow 6x. So you could probably borrow 300,000. How much is this building for you in Brooklyn? She was like, 2 million. 50,000, you can't borrow, you could borrow 6x, that's 300,000. I hope you have 1.7 million cash to put as a deposit. She's like, why don't? Then I said, well, why don't we just think about strategizing, showing 300,000, 6x. Now you could borrow up to 1.8 million. And the reason why I want you to plan this for at least 2 years, because they're going to look at their last 2-year return. So now you have 1.8 million, but you just need to put 10% down, 200 grand, which she had like over 400,000 sitting in checking account, earning her 0.001, if any. So I said, well, you have 400,000, you have your 200,000, like the deposit. You just don't have any bank interested to lending you the 1.8 million because you don't have the income to prove the credibility that you can be responsible with this 1.8 million. So we came up with a 2-year plan. She stopped reinvesting into the business. And she was like, well, if I make 300,000, let's say simple math, she paid 40%, which wasn't the case, in taxes. So I said 40% on 300,000, you're paying 120 grand, year 1. Year 2, you pay another 120 grand, that's 240,000. But now you get 1.8 million. 1.8 million. In the course of, I don't know how long you're gonna own this building, but 240,000 on 1.8 million, that's roughly, give or take, 12%. Do you think in the lifetime of owning this building, you can possibly earn 12% on what you borrowed? Because quite frankly, I looked at the comps in Brooklyn. I said commercial buildings at that time was growing on a conservative rate of 5%. After 2.5, 3 years, your building you buy for 2 million is probably going to be worth 2.5, 3 million. You just made it right there to offset the taxes. But the best part, which kind of convinced her, I said, once you buy this commercial building and you're the landlord and you're paying rent to yourself or however we do it, you do know real estate, as you're very familiar, offers you appreciation, which everyone wants to buy to grow the value of the building. Second, offers income, because this was a commercial building. She was in a storefront, but there was 2 residential units on top. She was going to get rental income. But a third was tax depreciation. Yeah. Because when you own commercial buildings, now you get more opportunities for write-off and deductions. I said 2 years of paying more taxes so that maybe the next 10 years, you get to have more write-offs and deductions. Net, you're going to be this far ahead. It kind of blew her mind, which to us This is standard. We learn it in our industry, but unfortunately, most minorities, Asian business owners, salons, blue collar, cash, mostly businesses are unfamiliar. Would you say those stories are very similar to what you see sometimes?
Oh, that's an amazing story. But no, you nail it. It's like it's a free building
That's
almost.
right.
Yeah, exactly. I see it a ton too. It's
Yeah.
very like it always hurts a lot because it's like, oh my gosh, like because these people they're not sitting on their asses just
Yeah.
like, like I'll just use me for example. I'm standing, but I
Yeah.
don't sit, but like, I'm standing, clicking on behind a computer, but we got people that are in the nail salon bringing in chemicals. You got
Yeah.
people blue collar out there, they're breaking sweats, right?
In the restaurant, 80 to 100 degree, cooking in the back kitchen. My father was too.
Yeah.
And they're busting their back
Yeah.
to work hard. Yep.
Exactly. And it's just like, dang, these guys are just losing money just because they don't have that education
Yep.
or the will to invest. I feel like first you have to be aware.
Yep.
Then second is like, all right, are you ready to invest?
Mhm.
But it just hurts a lot to see those because it's so true. Like day in, day out, like a lot of people are actually shockingly are not optimized. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yep.
Like this is really, you're just lighting your cash on fire, donating it to the government. I'm like, do you not, like, I still haven't met a single person this day that loves paying taxes.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you could do so much, just have a conversation. But that side part is sometimes we talk to people and nothing against like other tax professionals out there, but they also, like you said, do a disservice to a client. They're like, no, that's it. That's all we can do. I'm like, no, man, like,
So much more.
dude, if you have a business, there's so much you can do, right? There's endless opportunities. Real estate, there's still a lot you can do. W-2, yes, there's not a ton unless you make probably, if you're in the 35% bracket or more, then you can do more, but W-2 is kind of hard. But the thing about W-2 is like translate to real estate, translate to business. Like it's just one big circle. I always tell people there's only 3 ways to win the tax game: real estate, business, charity. If you're not playing one of those 3, you're like done. I would say it's like, it's your Pikachu, your Bulbasaur, Charmander, like Squirtle. Pick the one that you want to choose the path with and just ride with it. Otherwise, sit back. You don't get to complain if you don't get to choose. If you're okay of not choosing the path to move forward and advance your taxes, like that's your issue. It's not a me issue. It's a your issue, and you don't get to complain because you don't want to make the path and the decision.
Yeah. It's understanding the rules of the game. We as minorities growing up in an immigrant family was taught to work hard, make money, and save money. But with all that money, no one taught our community the rules of the game.
Yeah.
But once you understand the rules of games, optimizing our hard-earned money to really grow wealth, because a urban legend myth that I believe was meant to crush immigrants and minorities and low educated communities is cash is king. I say this and I will scream it as loud as I possibly can every time I speak at a conference.
Yeah.
Cash is not king, cash is trash, right? Because leverage is king. Having access to capital is king, because the government system is constantly printing out more and more money until they start taking money out of the system, which they're not. They're just printing more. It depreciates. Every year, the value, because of depreciation and inflation, goes down. But I read an article saying amongst all communities, the Asian community is probably one of the hardest working, highest in education, but also the highest in poverty rate. Were you aware of this? Poverty rate, and poverty, I think, is based on whether it's application for Medicaid, food stamps, and living in like government subsidized housing, is because they could work hard, have all this cash, depreciate it, and then say, hey, I don't have enough, so just constantly grind in that hamster wheel. Were you aware of that?
No, I was shocked by that last one. Oh my goodness.
For sure. And it could be just, I don't know, like you said that it was you and the nail salon family in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But being in New York City, there's a large Asian population. And just growing up, I remembered how common society made it feel like, hey, you're Asian, it's okay to be on Medicaid. It's okay to have food stamps. It's okay to be lower income, and it's unacceptable. To me, it's unacceptable because, yeah, we all start there. Maybe like when my family came to America in the 70s, but I don't want to raise my 3 kids and say, hey, kids, I can't wait for you to grow up to be on Medicaid. I can't wait to grow up and see how you would look at government subsidized housing and try to collect some food stamps. No, that's clearly a place for families that need it. But if we over time, education, and opportunity, we should get out of that struggle and empower ourselves to go to the next level. And how we do it is, quite frankly, knowing the rules of the game, understanding the tax planning strategies, understanding wealth planning strategies, because you are able to say, hey, this, I'm going to weaponize my tax return instead of deductions, max out my 401k. Why would you max out your 401k if your goal next year is to buy real estate? Having a lower tax return will reduce your likelihood of getting a certain amount of loans, or a lower tax return based on debt to income ratio. You might pay a higher interest rate for this debt, this money you're borrowing from the bank, which to me, it kills us, because we are so focused understanding how to win the system and win the game and know the numbers, but people are just committing all these nasty mistakes.
Yeah. Oh man, that was powerful. That was so much good stuff there. Like I think the first part is that leverage I want to nail on.
Yeah.
Leverage is so key. Like, so being conservative, my dad, you don't buy it until you have cash. You don't get to buy anything until you have cash. So like I had that stigma in my mind, so I don't leverage anything. The first leverage, besides like my house and car, was like our basic, but like leverage to invest into your business and yourself, never did it. So my first taste of it was my buddy. He actually told me about these 0% interest-free credit cards for 12 months.
Yep.
And then I was like, how are you using these? And then he was like, he stood up Airbnbs, so they just take about 30 grand to start up.
Yep.
You just run it on that until a Airbnb starts going. And then he's like, you should apply for it. And then like interest rates at that time were like 5%. So I was like, oh my God, 5% high yield savings account, 0% interest credit card. I was like, cool. So I went to the bank. I was like, yo, give me some of this.
Arbitrage.
Yeah. Exactly. Just the pathetic thing was here, to like, admit is this was 2020. This was only in 2022.
Oh, wow.
I don't use leverage. I'm like
really
scared shitless of it.
Interesting.
Like back in May. Now I was like, wait, I got free 5% interest. And I had about 44K balance that I had riding on my card that year. I was like, every time I pulled the bank, I was like, oh my God. I was scared actually. Like it sounds stupid. Like even though I'm a CPA and, I talk about this stuff, I didn't do it till 22. So I was like, what, 3 years ago? So I was only 30, I was 31, dude.
Okay.
Until I pulled like that kind of leverage, right?
Sure.
Like your house mortgage, everyone gets a mortgage, that or rent. A car is 0.9%. It was free. So, but this was like my first taste of leverage of like, oh, if you don't pay this is like 20 some percent. But then of course I like saved up all the money in the high yield savings, took my 5%. I was like, this is free food money.
Yeah.
Like 5%, like I was like, okay, cool. I'm getting like a free burrito every month. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Right. Super basic. And then I was like, okay, then the month came and I paid it off. But then the crazy thing was actually when I started working with you guys, and then you were like, about business line of credits. And I was like, I heard about them. I was like, you need to go get one. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And then like you guys said, hey, you don't have to use it, just have it. You're gonna have oxygen just in case anything were to ever happen. And then I was like, at that point, I'm glad I got that appetizer of the credit card. And I was like, well, I trust you guys, because you guys know exactly what to do. Like of all people, and that's like the thing I like really admire about you guys. It's like compared to other wealth advisors we've like came across and like seen from our clients, I'm like, oh my God, what happened to ethics? Like, so CPAs were held to like higher like ethics.
Fiduciary.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, obviously you guys are too, but some people, I just see stuff. I'm like, there's no ethics in the plans that are written here. They're like all like insurance products, all securities, always try to scare them. Like one person 2 weeks ago, I texted Kelvin this, I was like, hey, this person's threatening that they can't roll over their accounts without being all but taxed. And they're like, no. I'm like, then I was like, hey, just CC me into the email. And then that wealth advisor was like, oh no, your CPA is right. I'm like, duh.
Yeah.
But they're trying to scare them, keep them.
Fear mongering.
Yeah. So I was like,
it's a sales tactic.
Yeah.
It's been around for decades.
Yeah. I was like, that's terrible. So like, of course, like once you have someone that trusts, like, all right, cool, Rick, just tell me what to do. I'll just go do the plan, right? Hardest part is for the client to actually go do what you recommended. So then I went to Chase and then they gave me 196 grand.
Business line of credit?
Yeah. I was like,
amazing.
Holy cow. I'm like, these guys just handed me 196 grand.
Yep.
And it's only prime plus 1%.
Yep.
So I'm like, that's nothing. I'm like shocked.
And tax deductible to your business.
Yeah.
Yep. If you choose to utilize it. Yep.
Exactly. So I'm almost like, oh my gosh. So that not prime plus 1% is really way less just because your business is going to deduct it.
That's right.
So you probably saved 2 points on that I would assume, obviously I haven't pulled it,
Yep.
but it's just nice to have that assurance, especially since we have such a large team on payroll 6 figures every month. So I'm like,
Yep.
oh my gosh, just in case anything were to happen. But then, yeah, it's just been great. And then also the disability insurances. I didn't know about business disability for you guys. So like for some reason, everyone thinks CPAs know everything. I get asked about health insurance, Medicare, loans. Like sometimes we're a part-time therapist.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I
Marriage
think,
counselor.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know this stuff, man. And then the thing you guys taught me was just the business disability insurance. And I was like, oh, I guess if I just walk out today and get hit by a bus, the state will pay for disability insurance and you can have personal disability. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was just really exposed before I started working with you guys. I felt like I had a good way to like, I know how to make money. I know way to save money, but the protection side of was like extremely exposed. I was like, oh
Yep.
my gosh. And then like the life insurance, I'm like, even, as long as you have loved ones, if you have no loved ones, you don't need life insurance, right?
Yeah.
But if you have,
You want it, but you don't need it.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yep.
exactly. But if you have loved ones, like, okay, because I was able to like fortunately retire my wife.
Yeah.
But then if I die tomorrow, I'm like, oh, what's she gonna do?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, she's SOL. But then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, how much, does she really need to live? And let's just get basic insurance that way. And then, yeah, that's always just been like really one big thing that's always been great for you guys. For me personally, like, I'm just saying, like, I'm a CPA. Yes, I'm very smart. I know I like save a lot of people on taxes, but I don't know all these other things that you guys have. It's always been like, what else do you got up your sleeves that I should, put into my own portfolio?
Yep. I think, and thank you for those kind words. It's because when I decided to get into this industry, one of the biggest purpose and passion was seeing how many professionals, families, business owners were being underserved when working with the wrong professional.
Yeah.
I'm not saying all professionals are bad, but unfortunately, there's too many out there that are horrible, where they're just trying to fit a product to a person when it should be the other way around. Finding out, hey, like you mentioned earlier, having those conversations, truly uncovering. I call this the 6 pillars of finding financial freedom. First is cash flow planning. I care most about their cash flow, their income, their expenses, their surplus ratio, debt to credit, teaching them asset, balance sheet, profit and loss, everything on cash flow. And the second phase is risk mitigation and prevention. Then we talk about like healthcare, we talk about all those ancillary benefits, but you don't know how many people have some of the benefits you mentioned and their beneficiaries are not up to date and they're just completely exposed. And the analogy I would use is kind of like building a home is like building your financial future. It's like if I'm having a custom contract to build my home, probably the most important part of building a home, which no one talks about, is the foundation. Imagine I invite you to my home and say, hey, Tony, check out my basement. We start punching the cement slab. It's like, you see how strong this is? No one's going to do that. They're going to talk about the master bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen, the finishes. But if the foundation is not strong and you build this massive 6-bedroom, 6,000 square foot home, guess what? You don't know in 5, 10, 20, 30 years, can the foundation crack and then the home can be really collapse. So that's why we have to look at risk prevention, mitigation. Then once you build the foundation of knowing how to reduce, eliminate risk, then it's build wealth. Wealth can be anything. And you said something that is spot on. I hate professionals that are subjective and biased. Like I go to financial conferences, someone's going to say, hey, crypto's the best thing. Someone says real estate's the best thing. Someone says stock market's the best thing. Someone says, whatever is the best thing. But why is it one trick pony? I always say diversification isn't just about the asset class. Diversification is, so I always say this quote, a jack of all trade is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. If you're a master of only one thing, and unfortunately the market is not in your favor and it crashes, boom, it could be game over. But when you collect assets or you invest in assets that can really portray a future where I don't care even if the marketplace crashes one or a few of your asset classes, but you have other asset classes as a leverage and hedge, you'll never fail. So it's building wealth. Then the next part is exactly what you do. Once you build enough wealth, you got to meet a professional like yourself, do the tax planning side and reduce and mitigate wealth so that there's no tax drag. Then it's retirement planning so that you can see your goal, intentionally focus on it and how to execute it. And then finally, and I always say this, we work so hard, we build the wealth, we reduce our taxes legally and knowing the rules of the game, then you and I are going to be like the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, have what is called an estate, creating generational wealth. So many of us talk about the American dream, but most minorities' dream is not really their own dream. is creating that generational wealth impact legacy for the kids and grandkids. As I work with over 1,000 families, I notice that Asians work so hard, but when they get to retirement, it's so difficult, just as difficult, if not harder, to convince them to enjoy life. And then when I asked them, how come you're not enjoying life? They said, well, Rick, you don't understand. Our philosophy as an Asian household is to work hard, save money, and give it to our next generation. But I said, why is life one or the other? Why not it's both? You can work hard and live a great life so that you can truly enjoy it. And they're like, well, if we do that, I feel like I won't give enough. But if they understand how to build wealth efficiently, they can do both. Because if they don't learn how to do both, guess what? Their kids are going to work hard and not enjoy it. Their grandkids are not going to work hard and not enjoy it. So it becomes generational, not wealth, it's generational curse, and they're going to be enslaved to money. So there's a saying, you work hard for money or have money work hard for you. Those are things that I'm so passionate about, and I'm glad you say it, that hopefully we can change the next generation of entrepreneurs, professionals to really be wiser and smarter.
Yeah, this works smarter, not harder, but I think you nailed a few things there. And the theme that you said here is like it's real estate and securities, and crypto and your business versus, hey, like you said, one trick pony. It's like the common theme is like there's not a one size fits all for that one person anyways. It's just a big pot, I'd say, that like kind of just a whole bunch of like random soup together, right? Soup, you just add in everything, tastes good. So the chicken broth, that's good.
Yeah.
So like that and part, but then you mentioned again on the next part, that and again of like, hey, you can like have your cake and then eat it. So that curse part, man, you're just nailing it. A lot of this is actually crap, like bad stuff from my pop. So it's like the and, like, hey, you can like live your life and pass it on to your heirs and build generational wealth, but it's always been an or. And my dad had that same mentality. It's like you work hard and you don't really enjoy life. And I was like, damn. But then the big thing that unlocked for me was, unfortunately, his brother passed about 4 years ago, and it really just fucked my whole mind up. I was like, because I was on the same path. I'm gonna work hard, make a lot of money, and maybe enjoy life a little here and there. But I was never about enjoying life, actually. Like I just didn't care. I didn't know better. But then when my uncle passed, I visited, like right before he passed, I was actually fortunate to visit him in the hospital. And then he actually just left me a really great story to this day. And essentially he just said like, hey, Chinese people, all they do is work hard and then die. So he's 59. He didn't make it to 60. And he said, but Americans, man, these guys, they don't really have that much money, but man, they really know how to live in the moment and live life.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit. And he just said like, hey man, remember to enjoy your life before it's over, because he didn't enjoy any of his life. He also went to restaurant industry, did really well. Then, got caught up in some stuff, went to prison, came back, made it up again, bought multiple homes in California. But then the dude just passed with cancer. And I was like, oh shit. So he's always left me with that lesson of like, hey, enjoy your life while you're still here. And you actually can have both. And the thing that changed for me after he died, and like it's been the last couple of years of my own journey, some people sometimes think, oh, this dude's got it all. He's got it made. He's got a company. Like, to be honest, it's not that great, right? Like, I didn't really figure shit out. I'm still figuring it out, right? Yeah. It's like I'm 34 and I'm like, all right, slowly gonna figure it out. But knowing that, hey, you gotta live your life. My uncle paid his life to teach me a lesson. Yeah. And I was like, you actually can have both. Like, you can have an amazing, whatever you want, insert what you want. Yeah. I'm gonna say, I want an amazing Nike of tax firms, right? I'm gonna want that no matter what. That's my vision. I'm gonna make it happen no matter what. But I actually can enjoy my life if I have the right mindset, the right people and tools. I think my mindset was broken before because my dad was always like, you can only work. There's no choice. Like, bro, you work and then that's it, right? You don't really enjoy life. Because he used to call me up, like, hey, what are you doing? I'd be so shy. I'd be like, I was taking my dog out for a walk. Or, oh, hey, I'm eating out. And I felt guilty.
Like shame a little bit, right?
Yeah. Just like, because if the response wasn't work,
I
felt bad. Whenever I said, oh, I'm just working, man. And then he just lay off my shit. And this is what, anytime it was, and he's like, what, you're not working? But then it's just been a change where I'm like, wait, if I find amazing people with amazing processes and amazing vision to lead these people and everyone's happy, I can live a great life. Like it's afforded me the luxury just to be here today even. Like I wouldn't be here. Like if you asked me here 4 years ago, I'm like, sorry, Rick, I can't make it in New York, man. I have to stay down. I have to like be at the company. I have to like lead the
Mm,
troops. But like ever since I had that change in mindset, my uncle passing, doing some personal development on my own self, of like, oh, you can have it all. Now I'm just like, holy shit, this is really fun.
yeah.
Like now it's like, dude, we're just gonna build something massive now. It's just because you know how to do it. So like that's one thing I like really want people to know is like you can have it all. Don't say you can't have it all. It's your mindset that's really messing you up. Like if you change your mindset about it and know, hey, every day I can have everything from I can have great health, I can have great wealth, I can have great relationships. Life's pretty good.
Yeah. Everything you said, the reason why I'm so passionate is like you, I was raised the same way. I think if you speak to 10 Asians or minorities, 9 out of 10 of them will share with you a similar upbringing where a lot of it was through scarcity. I used to think to achieve financial freedom or achieve anything in life, it's about working hard. And then I realized later on, as I grew my career, it's more working smart than hard. But truly, it's the foundation, whereas your mental mindset. That's why we call this unleash mindset, right? Because once we unleash our mindset to dream as big as we can possibly dream, then anything is possible versus being stuck in that little bubble. So I remember just my childhood upbringing. I was always told by my parents what to do, who to be, and how to act. I think it was um, before I was 30 years old, my vision was to say, hey, I'm going to build wealth, not like the Asian Eastern way. I'm going to build wealth in America like my Western colleagues and counterparts. And I had to learn from them because if I learned from my peers, I would be on food stamp, on Medicaid, and maybe running a blue collar business, which is nothing wrong, but thinking cash is king and always be behind. So as I was learning from my counterparts, like living the best life, understanding leverage, I realized that hey, there's so many ways of building this business. And I think it was like 29 years old, my father realized I bought more real estate than he did. And one day, I think he still didn't really know what I did for a living, but it was one day, I think it was like around the holidays, and he was like, oh, you're buying another real estate property? He's like, how are you buying it so quickly? Where do you get the cash from? I said, Dad, I'm just putting 20 to 30% down. The banks is my business partner, and they're lending me the money. And he's like, well, oh, that is bad. I was like, Dad, I'm getting it for 3.5%, 4%. Are you kidding me? Historic inflation is this. And then he was like, okay, well, can you show me more? I think the proudest moment, I showed him my tax return. He's like, I thought he was proud of me. I showed him my tax return. He was like, you're such an idiot. You're paying so much in taxes. And then I explained to him leverage. Now, we talked about this earlier. That is bad. But the five, at least to me, non-negotiable leverages truly to achieve wealth I learned from really some of the wealthiest, smartest business entrepreneurs in the world is the five leverage is first, if you own a business line of credit. The second is personal line of credit. Third is if you own a home equity line of credit. Insurance products, insurance back line of credit. And number five is securities back line of credit. Once you understand these five lines of credit, then you have access to capital. So I think I showed my dad my tax return, then I explained to him these five lines of credits, and he still kind of didn't understand. But I explained to him, I said, Dad, I probably disappointed you as much as not being a doctor, lawyer, engineer. I owe over 7 figures in debt, including my mortgage and everything. And he was like, oh my God, son, are you going bankrupt? Then I showed him, well, let me show you my balance sheet. Although we have 7 figures of debt, I showed him 8 figures of assets. And I said, well, if you look at the appreciation of assets and income flowing, generating from these assets to cover the debt, I actually can live off the income stream and I could retire at that time. And he was like, finally, he said, teach me how. And I think at that moment, I went from being his son, where he was talking down on me, to being like his friend. And he was talking to me, together with me. And then I simply explained to him, not only today do I have 7 figures of debt, I still have over 7 figures line of credit. So in our world, I teach most of our clients, you need to have 3 to 6 times your emergency fund. And I sound kind of crazy. Our payroll is 6 figures a month too, but I only have 2 times my expenses. Now you're like, oh, Rick, you're just a risk taker. Actually, some things I'm a risk taker. I don't like going to a casino because I'm not a risk taker. But you might say, well, how come you only have 1 or 2 times your expenses on payroll in your business account? It's because I have mid seven figures in line of credit. Within 48 hours, if I know like, hey, the market crashes and I can't make payroll in the end of the month, I can just wire seven figures into my business account from all these different line of credits like that. And because I have that clarity, that freedom, I'm never going to have lazy dollars. Lazy dollars is hoarding cash. And I like to use the harsh word hoarding because, quite frankly, if you just look at it to make you feel secure and have a sense of identity, then you're not controlling money, money's controlling you. So instead, what I do is I say, hey, I'm going to have the least amount of cash flow as I know to, maintain my lifestyle, but I'm going to have the most amount of invested assets. And that's how you truly build wealth. So, and then now my father, he's in the double digits in real estate. He can fully retire. He's in his 60s. The saddest part is he's still working 6-7 days a week. In fact, yesterday was Father's Day and he had work on Father's Day. Why? Because I think he's at that stage where it's like kind of like his client called him and say, hey, Mr. Wu, come to my job site. And my father's a real estate developer, contractor. He's like, come to my job site. I want to give you this opportunity. My dad's like, hey, I'm going to make money on a Sunday. That's why, sadly, I grew up, hopefully you grew up in a different way. I didn't really see my parents. And today with my children, I hope can spend more time with their grandparents, my parents, but still, they can't get out of that curse, that mindset, that shift where it's like money is everything. So as soon as we can break that money is a tool, money is just currency, we can control it, we can have it flow. And the best thing I always say, especially with abundance mentality, as quickly as you earn it, yes, you have to invest it, but also be generous with it. Because I always say this to other friends and entrepreneurs, if my best friend owns a restaurant across the street, and let's say his food is average at best, and he's 3 times the price of my favorite restaurant, I'll still go there, support him. Hopefully, maybe once a month, not once every week, because you know why? I gotta help my friends out. So I don't, and it's kind of like weird, right? People don't understand this because if you take care of your community and your tribe and they grow, we all grow. And there's so much incredible energy to be shared. And we talked about like success could be luck. No, success is hard work. Harder you work, the more successful and more lucky you become. But the more you give back, the more you take care of others, I truly believe our, largest asset is the relationships we have. Because I say this, it doesn't matter, where you and I eat, where you and I sit, where you and I are recording, but, hopefully, no matter what stage we are in life, there are still close people that will be there to us. What's that saying? Ride with us during the nice, expensive days in a nice car. But I'm truly looking for it. And I've built this relationship just last almost 20 years of business. Who will ride with me in the bus? Fortunately, none of us, the closest people in my life, will ever need to ride a bus. But it's like having those relationships is so incredible because now that we all used to ride the bus together, we get to a certain level of success. We'll never let any one of us choose to ride the bus unless we want to, but we will, no matter what, support one another because we're going to make sure the high tides rise all our ships.
Oh man, I love that. Just the support, like that's one thing. Like always, just keep it in your own network.
Yeah.
It's just like even like back in the day, everyone that ate at that restaurant, they indirectly support you, and then that's the one thing I'm always like, hey, where's the small business at? Yeah, it's not the prettiest. Yeah, it's not the tastiest, right? But you just have to keep it within your own tribe. Like anytime, like I needed a video person and I hit up one of our clients, like, hey, you know anyone? And then like, I don't know if they're good, but I mean, if they're okay people, like, and they got good personalities, I'll invest into them. Like you could probably go find the best, that's what's so corporatized. But I'm like, it just, you giving someone else $2,000 would mean the world to them versus a corporation. Like that's one thing we did in the tax world was like, you'd save these Fortune 500 companies. We're at 3M, found them like an 8-figure refund.
Wow.
Cool. All right. California saved someone $800 on an LLC fee.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, this is amazing. So just, I don't know, just keeping it within our own community is so big, but just bringing everyone with and changing is going to be a journey for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to ask you a question. What is the biggest tax mistake you see people make, which you prevent them from making?
Biggest tax mistake that we make? Oof, there's a ton. I would say the biggest one is just not investing in whatever that, either the 401k, so we use the solo 401k a ton,
Amazing.
stash $70,000 into that. Or if they're like not into securities, because some people are like, I can't touch till 15 and a half. I'm like, all right, you want real estate? And then the short-term rental,
Yep.
like just get an Airbnb. So the biggest thing is like they don't invest their money. So I'm
Mm.
like, hey, pick one of the two. You gotta do it though. So I would say just like having those conversations of like, hey, you need to have wealth building. Like I'm gonna take all the money I'm gonna save you, but you gotta put it in one of these things.
That's right.
Like you don't get to take maybe fine, you get on vacation, but you know, majority of this has to go work for you.
Yep. Because what's cool about both of those asset classes, whether it's the 401k, is that it grows tax deferred, or if you put into, let's say, a post-tax Roth one, it grows tax free. And in real estate, the appreciation of real estate offers you that deferral because let's say you buy a property for 100,000, it grows to 120,000 value because the area is really booming. You're not paying 20,000 until you liquidate. Right? So therefore, you're teaching people to save money on their taxes in the most smart and efficient way, but at the same time, with that savings, invest in assets that can also build tax efficiently over time versus parking in your checking and savings account. Then have 1099's INT which is ordinary income tax, gets taxed at the highest rate versus capital gains tax or even deferral. I agree. Yeah. Our biggest mistake, at least in our world, that's kind of tied to real estate, and I still hear these stories today, which kind of kills me, and I kind of blow up with passion, is, hey, my parents are at a certain age. They want to add me to the deed.
Oh God.
Kills me. It kills me. It makes me so angry. I want to just like smash my window, which I won't do. But it's kind of like, you know, I speak to like minority families and say, hey, my parents are approaching retirement. They want to add me to the deed. And I said, why? They're like, well, because when, you know, generational passing, adding me to deed, I said, you lose your step up in basis. Real estate offers that major advantage where, you know, your parents buy a home for 100,000 and then let's say now it's worth $1 million. They, you know, add you to the deed. It could be a buy, a sell transfer. But one thing that's very important, you lose your step up in basis. And so many minorities with lack of education work so hard, build their wealth. And then at the end, when they pass away, whether they pay it or their kids pay it, they lose the step up in basis. And what I tell them is like, hey, why don't you just go speak to a legal professional, wills, trust, estate attorney, set up a revocable trust, put your deed beneficiary, like all my deeds. I did my wills, trust, estate planning years ago after having kids. And then so therefore what we could do is then say, hey, the beneficiary goes to the revocable trust and then my children can receive the step up in basis. But of course that differs or depends on the state. I think in California, if you put into a revocable trust, you may not get the step on basis, which is hard. So every state is a little different, but just adding your kids to the deed is a lazy, poor way of planning. And it kills me because you work so hard for your assets to grow while other families that have the knowledge to eliminate and reduce their taxes, because we don't know, add our kids to the deeds and we lose the opportunity. And that's where I see a lot of wealth, instead of growing, gets sliced or lose it.
Oh yeah, had that guy, that 80-year-old guy that had the same thing. He had a $3 million house bought for $500,000, and then he wants to sell it. And I was like, dude, just take out a HELOC on it.
That's right.
Just live off that till you die, because the capital gains tax was going to be $500,000. I'm like, dude, even at 10% for how much you need to live, and he's a Chinese guy, right? He's not going to spend more than 6 figures living his life a year. I'm like, dude, that's like, at 10% on $100,000 a year, that's 10,000. You can live for another 50 years, dude. And you're 80, respectfully. Like, okay, modern medicine, we're not gonna live till 130.
Nope.
I was like, don't sell the house. I'm like,
That's right.
dude, just keep it and go get a HELOC.
That's right.
Because the capital gains taxes will murder you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love just all the tax advice and all the financial stories. Now, last question. If you can give advice to your 8-year-old version, because quite frankly, we have some 8-year-old viewers, and give advice to your 80-year-old version, what would you say to the 8-year-old you and the 80-year-old you?
The 8-year-old me, that one would just be keep on playing more Pokemon. Like I used to play a ton of the cards and the games.
Yeah.
But then it always can be like balanced with like work. I'm like, oh dang, like the work is always gonna be there no matter what you do. And then just enjoy the childhood more, because it's just like, I feel like I probably could have enjoyed more during that time. And I just didn't know better. So I was like, hey, you're young. That's a great age. And then just do what you truly love. And like I didn't explore too much. It's like maybe I should have explored different sports. Maybe we could have more fun there, and then also probably drink some milk too.
Yeah.
I stopped drinking milk when I was 3, so I've probably been, I don't know, maybe a little bit taller if I drink some milk.
How tall are you right now?
5'10".
5'10"? I'm 5'7", so therefore I wish I drank a lot of milk, but I don't know if milk is really helping, or maybe just whole milk wasn't helping for me.
Yeah.
What advice would you give your 80-year-old self?
80-year-old self, the theme's gonna still resonate. It's just to live your life the best that you can every day, and don't stop moving. The one thing I think, no matter what, I'm gonna do 45 minutes of exercise a day right now. 80-year-old self, keep on doing 45 minutes just to stay young no matter what. I've seen some people I've worked with, and these guys are in their 70s, 80s, and they get up and down better than when my dad was in his 50s. And I asked him, like, hey, what did you do? Like, how are you so nimble? Like, I just moved my whole life. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So knowing what I know now is like, hey, just keep on moving, don't stop, and also just enjoy there and be there for your family.
Great. Love those advice. And now finally, for all the people that are watching, viewers, if they want to reach out to you, understand your services, need your help, how do they reach out to you? How can they find you?
Yeah, Instagram's our best spot. The CPA Dude _. If you just DM us there, we'll definitely get you taken care of. And then besides that, the website, thecpadude.com. Everything, all our socials are CPA Dude. Then TikTok, we do some fun stuff there. So that's the CPA Dude also.
Yeah, love your content. And
thank you.
So for all of you, as promised, another incredible episode on Unleash Mindset. Tony, the CPA Dude, you have to check him out. His content is creative, funny, but more importantly, what's really cool about Tony being an incredible person is he keeps it simple, and he helps everyone that he works with take their tax planning to the next level. So Tony, appreciate you, brother. Thank you for sharing so much insight to our audience. Thank you so much for all that you do, and keep crushing and inspiring, changing the world.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks, brother.
Yep.